Hi guys, and welcome to the Encore presentation for part 41 of Skyrim Mod Sanctuary. Now, I've got a few corrections and embellishments to make in this video, and the first thing I want to say is a few people were a little worried when I said that if you didn't like the idea of vampire mods, you could go and visit someone else's channel and see their videos, and they thought I meant that in a nasty way. And I understand if people thought that might be the case, but that really was not my intention. What I actually was really meaning was, this video is about vampire mods, and I know some of you don't like it. And I really wanted to give a shout out to InsaneoFlex's channel, and he's got loads of videos that don't cover vampire mods, and thought, hey, you guys could check that out, you know, as just... It was me communicating badly. You know I didn't mean anything by it. Some people wondered if I was telling them to, you know, basically, you know, if you don't like the mods I show, go somewhere else. Nothing could be further from the case. I really did mean it in the nicest possible way. Just a shout out for InsaneoFlex's channel, which if you've not checked out, you should still go and check out. Great channel. But that does not mean I want you to never come back here, okay? Just getting that cleared up. My apologies for any confusion. Okay, now the first thing I want to do with regards corrections about the mods is admit to a mistake I made. I'm afraid I said that Vampire Seduction was a power added by BSR, and it is not. It's a vanilla power, or a power added in Dawnguard. So that was my mistake. I am sorry about that. The next thing that came up was a question that recurred quite a lot, actually. And people were saying, why is it that you take damage when trespassing? Why is that cool? And perhaps it's just because I used to grow up with all the old vampire movies, etc. But it's sort of old vampire lore that a vampire cannot enter a house unless he has been invited. That it doesn't account for public places, but for privately owned houses, he cannot enter unless he has been invited. Those of you who watch TV series like True Blood will know what I'm talking about. And basically, this was trying to simulate that. So if you trespass, you take damage as if you were in the sun. Nobody asked about the holy symbols, so I guess everybody knows the old vampire lore of vampires not liking the crucifix. So anyway, so it's old vampire lore, and a few people pointed out, well, but that's not the Elder Scrolls lore. Absolutely correct. BSR is not lore friendly with regards the Elder Scrolls vampires. It is an overhaul, and they have attempted to make the vampires more like the sort of European mythology vampires. So, you know, be aware of that. It is lore changing. It changes the vampire experience to be something more like the old vampire movies. Someone else also said, well, wait a minute, I'm a thief character. Isn't that going to really interfere with my thieving? And yes, it might. However, there is a power in BSR, once you get to master rank, which is the 3rd rank, that allows you, it's called Vampire Kiss, and basically it's a normal power that you can activate on someone, and they then go off and sleep. They suddenly feel sleepy, so they go back to their bed and sleep. But they also invite you into their house. It's considered now an invitation. The great thing with this, I haven't managed to test it out because I've not reached that rank yet. I'm really looking forward to it. But I've also been told that this option appears as dialogue options as well. So you could go forward and talk to someone and convince them to invite you in the house, which I think is brilliant. And I spoke to the mod author, and he's basically suggesting, well, one of the mod authors, and he is basically suggesting that they are attempting to really enhance this type of feature. Feeding in general, they'd like a lot more options. So hopefully, I mean, I'm hoping for a lot of dialogue options. If any of you ever played Vampire Bloodlines, the Masquerade, brilliant game, very dated now. But there were options there to seduce people, to convince people to follow you, and you could feed off them, stuff like that. I'm hoping they add stuff like this. So yes, trespassing, causing damage, definitely is a bit of a hindrance, but they're trying to add ways around that, and they already have the Vampire's Kiss. This is one of the things that makes this mod so interesting to me. Now, in the original video, I did mention that I couldn't cover everything this mod has to offer because there are just too many things. But if you check out the documentation, you're going to find things like increased carrying capacity. One very cool thing is, I mentioned the sprinting faster, but when you become a master vampire, you can sprint so fast you actually walk on water. You also don't breathe anymore at that level, so you essentially get water breathing for free. And there's a huge number of things like this, like a sort of a feather fall type spell. And I believe the Vampire Lord actually can fall great distances without taking any damage. There are lots of abilities such as teleport or the ability to extinguish torches, which sounds like a very, very cool ability to have. One of my favourites is actually from the Sire. There is an ability called Powers of Persuasion, which apparently allows you to sort of convince guards to drop charges against you. So if you get seen committing a crime, and it's not a very serious one, you can actually have a dialogue option that will basically wipe their memories clean. It's very reminiscent of the old vampire movies when they would stare into his victim's eyes and they would become sort of helpless or forget they'd ever seen him type thing. Very cool stuff like that. So there are loads of abilities, and just check out the documentation to see the sort of things you're going to be getting. They've also added things like lots of little locations, little safe havens for vampires to sleep. Dotted around Skyrim, and they've added bounty hunters, well, vampire hunters, extra ones, I think, on top of the Dawnguard ones. And the chance of them appearing apparently goes up if you feed in highly populated areas. So it's actually better to feed out in the middle of nowhere, that type of thing, get less noticed, which I think is a really nice feature. It keeps you on your toes, it keeps you thinking about this hidden life of yours and keeping it hidden. And one thing I completely forgot to mention was the fact that you can change a lot of these settings in-game. There is actually a power called Vocare Adjutor. I'm not sure if I'm saying that correctly. And when you cast this, it will summon the vampire assistant, and you can then go along to the settings and change several things, from the weaknesses, how much sun damage you take, to the vampire sight options. Plenty of things for you to change, including some useful things if you think you don't like them. Personally, I like pretty much the entire default settings of BSR, so I've changed nothing. And of course, the inevitable question was asked: which is better, the Better Vampires mod or BSR? And it's one of those questions that, again, it's impossible to answer because it's going to depend on what you want from your vampire overhaul. Both mods are superb. Both mods make the vampire experience a lot more interesting. Both mods make the vampires more powerful, but weaker at the same time. They add weaknesses to balance the strengths. So in that way, both mods are very well balanced. So what are the differences? Well, the first difference is, I would say Better Vampires is more lore friendly to the Elder Scrolls lore. BSR mod attempts to bring in a lot of lore from other vampire stories that might well not fit the Elder Scrolls if you're an absolute lore, for you the Elder Scrolls lore is absolutely sacrosanct and how dare you break it. BSR is adding things that's probably going to offend you, so that should be something you consider. And the second thing, which is probably the most important thing actually, is how much time you have to devote to just being a vampire, rather than just getting on with your quests. When you play with Better Vampires, you are going to have to spend some time feeding, some time looking after yourself, but at the same time it doesn't interfere with your gameplay in general that much. BSR, on the other hand, does. When you play with BSR, being a vampire is going to be equally as important as the main quest or any other quests you are doing. Everywhere you go, you're going to be thinking about your next meal. I found BSR made me think of blood all the time. And it sounds kind of creepy, but it did. It constantly has me worrying about getting hungry, because being hungry doesn't drop me back a stage or take me forward a stage as it does in better vampires. Getting hungry, you can almost miss and get into stages where suddenly you're in a little bit of trouble. Without sleeping, without going through huge periods of time, you've got to keep your hunger at bay. You have to keep it under control or face the consequences. And with the other weaknesses like trespassing, holy symbols, etc., I found BSR dominated my attention far more than better vampires. And whether that is a good thing is completely up to you. Now, I'm sticking with BSR because I'm really enjoying the fact that I'm not having an easy time of it. I found the first few days of being a vampire a little stressful, but in a really fun way. I really had to learn how to be a vampire, and I'm still learning. I'm only at the 2nd rank, and I'm only learning the basics of how to be a vampire, and I love that. I mean, I'm almost not thinking about the quests now. I'm completely focused on being a vampire. Excuse me, I think it's getting lighter. Let me turn the night vision off. So, that's it. That's what you're going to have to decide. Which of the ones you prefer is going to depend on those few factors. However, they're both superb mods, and whichever you pick is going to make your vampire experience so much more enjoyable. Okay guys, I think that's about it. That's most of the corrections and mistakes and questions answered that I can think of. I hope this video helped, and I look forward to seeing you next time. And until then, as always, have fun.